$380. That's all he had left in the world, and he gave it to a stranger. A single father, surviving on $3 a day, heard a teacher crying about her broken-down car, and he made a choice that defied all logic. He didn't know she was wealthy. He didn't know she was testing the world to see if good people still existed. He just knew she needed help, and that one impossible act of generosity would reveal a truth that changed everything. This is the story of the janitor who passed a test he didn't know he was taking. Before we continue, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Marcus had learned to survive on $3 a day. Not because he was bad with money, but because after rent, utilities, his daughter's asthma medication, and the bare minimum groceries, that's what was left. $3. Some days it was $2. On good weeks, maybe $5. He'd become an expert at stretching nothing into something, a skill no one teaches you until life demands it. His daughter, Lily, was 7 years old and still believed her father could do anything. She didn't know that some nights he skipped dinner so she could have seconds. She didn't know he'd been wearing the same 2 pairs of jeans for 3 years, or that he walked 40 minutes to work each way to save on bus fare. She didn't know that the reason he smiled so much was because he was terrified she'd see through the cracks. Marcus worked as a janitor at Riverside Elementary, the same school Lily attended. It wasn't glamorous, but it meant he could see her during lunch, wave at her through the cafeteria window, and walk her home every afternoon. After her mother left when Lily was 2, just packed a bag one Tuesday morning and never came back, Marcus had built his entire world around making sure his daughter never felt abandoned again. He was good at being invisible. People didn't really see janitors. They saw clean floors and empty trash cans, but not the man who made it happen. And that was fine with Marcus. He wasn't looking for attention. He was looking for stability, for routine, for one more day where Lily felt safe. But then came the Tuesday that changed everything. It started in the teacher's lounge. Marcus was replacing the paper towels when he overheard 2 teachers talking near the coffee machine. One of them, Mrs. Brennan, was newer to the school. She had dark hair pulled into a neat bun and always wore simple, almost outdated clothes. Cardigans with small pulls in the fabric, shoes that had been resoled too many times. "I don't know how I'm going to make it to payday," she was saying quietly to another teacher. "My car broke down yesterday, and the mechanic said it's going to be at least $400. I don't have it. I've been taking the bus, but it adds 2 hours to my commute each way, and I have to pick up my son from daycare by 6 or they charge late fees." The other teacher made sympathetic noises but didn't offer help. Marcus kept his head down, replacing the towels, pretending not to listen. "I even asked my family," Mrs. Brennan continued, her voice tight. "But my mom's on a fixed income, and my brother just lost his job. I feel so stupid. I'm a teacher, you know? I should be able to handle a $400 emergency. But I can't." There was shame in her voice. Marcus recognized it. It was the same shame he felt every time Lily asked why they couldn't go to the movies like other kids, or why her shoes had duct tape on the side. Mrs. Brennan left a few minutes later, and Marcus finished his work in silence. That night, he couldn't stop thinking about her. He knew what it felt like to be trapped by a broken-down car. 2 years ago, his own truck had died, and he'd lost a better-paying job because he couldn't get there reliably. It had taken him 6 months to claw his way back to something stable. 6 months of fear and uncertainty that still woke him up at night sometimes. Lily was already asleep when he sat down at their small kitchen table with a pencil and the back of an envelope. He did the math 3 times. If he skipped lunches for 2 weeks, he could save $30. If he walked to work instead of taking the bus on rainy days, another $12. If he delayed buying Lily's new shoes for 1 more month, she'd been complaining that her current ones pinched her toes. That was $40. He had $63 in his emergency fund, the one he'd been building for 3 years in an old coffee tin. It was supposed to be for disasters. Maybe this counted. It took him an hour, but he found a way to get to $380. It wasn't $400, but it was close. Maybe she could negotiate with the mechanic. Maybe it would be enough. The next morning, Marcus withdrew the money from his account during his break. His hands shook as he counted the bills. It felt reckless, stupid. What if Lily got sick? What if something happened and he needed this money? But he kept thinking about the shame in Mrs. Brennan's voice, the exhaustion, the same exhaustion he carried every single day. He folded the money into a plain envelope and wrote on the front, "For your car, no need to pay it back. We all need help sometimes." He left it in her mailbox in the teacher's lounge. For 2 days, Marcus heard nothing. He went about his work, mopping floors, cleaning whiteboards, emptying trash bins. He saw Mrs. Brennan in the hallways a few times, but she didn't look at him. Why would she? He was just the janitor. On Thursday afternoon, Marcus was fixing a broken desk leg in one of the classrooms when Mrs. Brennan walked in. She closed the door behind her. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" she asked. Marcus looked up surprised. "Sure, is something wrong?" She stood there for a long moment, just looking at him. There was something strange in her expression, something he couldn't quite read. "I found an envelope in my mailbox," she said slowly, "with money in it, $380. Marcus kept his face neutral. "That's good. Someone must have wanted to help." "It was you, wasn't it?" He hesitated. "I don't know what you mean." "Marcus." Her voice was gentle but firm. "It was you." He looked down at the desk leg, suddenly uncomfortable. I overheard you talking. I know what it's like. That's all." "You gave me $380. "It's not a big deal." "Yes, it is." Her voice cracked slightly. "Do you have any idea what you did?" Marcus didn't know what to say. He felt exposed, like she could see every corner of his life that he tried so hard to keep hidden. Mrs. Brennan sat down in one of the student chairs, right there in the middle of the classroom. She looked at him with an intensity that made him nervous. "I need to tell you something," she said, "and I need you to listen." Marcus put down his screwdriver. "My name isn't really Mrs. Brennan," she said quietly. "It's Catherine Brennan, but I'm not a struggling single mother. I'm the daughter of Harold Brennan." The name meant nothing to Marcus. She saw his confusion and continued. "Harold Brennan owns Brennan Properties. He's one of the wealthiest real estate developers in the state. I grew up with everything: trust funds, private schools, a life where $400 was what I'd spend on a dinner without thinking twice." Marcus felt the ground shift beneath him. "But when my father found out I wanted to be a teacher instead of working in the family business, he was furious. He said teaching was beneath me, that I was wasting my potential. We fought for years. And then 6 months ago, I told him I wanted to actually understand what real people go through. Not just teach kids, but understand the family struggling to survive. He didn't believe I could handle it. So I made a deal with him." She took a breath. "I would live on a teacher's salary for 1 year. No access to my trust fund, no help from my family. I'd rent a modest apartment, drive an old car, shop at thrift stores. I wanted to prove to him that I could do it, that I could live in the real world and still choose this profession. And he said that if I made it the full year, he'd respect my choice and stop pressuring me to join the company." Marcus's mind was reeling. "But it wasn't really a test for him," Catherine continued, her eyes filling with tears. "It became a test for me, to see if I could actually survive what so many of my students' families survive every single day. And it's been the hardest thing I've ever done. The fear, the constant math, the humiliation of not being able to afford basic things. I thought I understood struggle before, but I didn't. Not even close." She wiped her eyes. "And then my car broke down. A real emergency, not a manufactured one. I had the money to fix it. I could have called my father, could have broken my own rules. But I didn't want to. I wanted to prove I could handle it. So I asked around, tried to borrow money, felt the shame of it. And I was going to figure it out. I was going to make it work somehow." She looked directly at Marcus. "And then you gave me almost $400. You, who I've seen eating the same peanut butter sandwich every single day. You, who walks to work in the rain. You, who I've watched slip your own lunch to students who forgot theirs. You gave me everything you had." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "I thought you actually needed it." "I did need it," Catherine said. "Not the money. I needed to see that. To see what real generosity looks like. What real compassion looks like. You didn't know me. I was just some teacher who'd barely said hello to you. But you heard that I was struggling, and you gave me everything you could." She reached into her bag and pulled out the envelope. It was still sealed. "I didn't cash it," she said. "I couldn't. Marcus, this money represents weeks of your life, weeks of sacrifice. I can't take that." "It was a gift," Marcus said. "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to," she interrupted. "But I need you to understand something. My father has spent his entire life surrounded by wealthy people. People who throw money at problems, who donate to charities for tax write-offs, who help others when it's convenient and benefits their image. But you gave when it cost you everything. That's the kind of person I want to be. That's the lesson I needed to learn." She stood up and handed him the envelope. "I'm calling my father tonight," she said. "I'm ending the experiment early. Not because I failed, but because I learned what I needed to learn. And I learned it from you." Marcus took the envelope, his hands shaking. "I don't understand." "You showed me what real wealth looks like," Catherine said simply. "It's not in bank accounts. It's in the size of someone's heart." She reached into her bag again and pulled out a business card. "My father owns dozens of properties, including several commercial buildings downtown. I'm going to talk to him about hiring you as a property manager. It pays 4 times what you make here, with benefits and room for advancement. You'd still have time with your daughter. You wouldn't have to choose between her medication and dinner." Marcus stared at the card. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you do this?" "Because you did something for me when you had every reason not to," Catherine said. "Because you saw someone struggling and your first instinct was to help, even though you were struggling too. That's the kind of person my father needs working for him. That's the kind of person I want in my life." She walked toward the door, then turned back. "And Marcus? Thank you. Not for the money. For reminding me why I wanted to be a teacher in the first place, to help people, to see them. You've been invisible in this school for years, but I see you now. And I promise you, things are going to change." The following Monday, Marcus met with Harold Brennan. The older man was exactly what Marcus expected. Tall, distinguished, expensive suit. But there was something else in his eyes. A curiosity. A respect. "My daughter told me what you did," Harold said, shaking Marcus's hand. "I've spent 40 years in business, and I've met thousands of people. Politicians, CEOs, millionaires. And do you know what I've learned?" Marcus shook his head. "Character isn't what you do when people are watching," Harold said. "It's what you do when no one will ever know. You gave my daughter everything you had, and you didn't want recognition. You didn't want thanks. You just wanted to help. That's rare. That's valuable." He offered Marcus the job. The salary was more than Marcus had made in any single year of his life. There was health insurance, real insurance that would cover Lily's medication without him having to choose between prescriptions and groceries. There was a retirement plan, paid time off, stability. Marcus started crying right there in Harold Brennan's office, and the older man just handed him a box of tissues and waited. "You're going to do great," Harold said quietly. "Catherine sees something in you. And if my daughter believes in someone, I've learned to listen." 3 months later, Marcus and Lily moved into a small house with a backyard. Nothing fancy, but it was theirs. Lily had her own room, painted yellow like sunshine. Marcus bought her new shoes without checking his bank account first. He took her to the movies on a random Tuesday, just because she wanted to see the new animated film. He still walked sometimes, but now it was because he wanted to, not because he had to. Catherine stopped by one evening with homemade cookies. She'd gone back to teaching full-time, and her father had stopped pressuring her about the family business. "I told him I found something more valuable than real estate," she said, sitting on Marcus's front porch while Lily played in the yard. "I found purpose, and I found proof that good people still exist." Marcus smiled. "You were testing me, and I didn't even know it." "No," Catherine said. "I was testing myself. You just showed me what passing actually looks like." They sat in comfortable silence, watching Lily chase fireflies in the growing dusk. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said after a while. "Anything. Why didn't you just tell me the truth from the beginning? Why go through all of that?" Catherine thought about it for a long moment. "Because if I'd told you I was wealthy and just pretending to be broke, would you have helped me?" she asked. "No," Marcus admitted. "I would have thought it was wrong, insulting even." "Exactly," Catherine said. "And I wouldn't have blamed you. But by not telling you, I got to see who you really were. Not who you'd be if you knew there might be a reward. Just you. The man who hears someone struggling and sacrifices everything to help, even when he's drowning himself." She looked at him with those same intense eyes from the classroom. "You taught me that wealth isn't about what you have," she said. "It's about what you're willing to give. And Marcus, you're the richest person I know." Lily ran up to the porch, breathless and laughing, holding a jar with 3 fireflies glowing inside. "Daddy, look!" she exclaimed. "I caught them! Can we keep them?" Marcus looked at his daughter, healthy, happy, safe, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. "Peace, just for tonight," he said, pulling her close. "Then we let them go. Some beautiful things aren't meant to be kept. They're meant to remind us that magic still exists." Lily nodded seriously and sat down between Marcus and Catherine, the 3 of them watching the fireflies pulse with light in the darkness. And in that moment, Marcus understood something he'd been too tired and too scared to see before. He'd spent years believing he had nothing to offer the world, that he was just a janitor, just a struggling single father, just someone barely surviving. But Catherine had seen something different. She'd seen a man who gave everything when he had nothing. A man who chose kindness when life had given him every reason to be bitter. She'd been looking for proof that good people still existed, and somehow, without knowing it, he'd been the answer. The envelope of money sat in Marcus's drawer at home, still unopened. He'd tried to give it back, but Catherine refused. "Keep it," she'd said. "Start a real emergency fund, or take Lily somewhere special. Use it for something that brings you joy. You've spent your whole life giving. Let yourself receive for once." So he did. One Saturday morning, Marcus took Lily to the aquarium downtown. They spent 4 hours watching sea turtles and touching stingrays and eating overpriced ice cream. Lily's face glowed with wonder, and Marcus took pictures with the phone Catherine had helped him upgrade. His old one had been cracked for 2 years. On the drive home, Lily fell asleep in the back seat, her face pressed against the window. Marcus looked at her in the rearview mirror and felt his heart expand. This was what he'd been fighting for. These moments. This peace. This proof that struggle doesn't last forever. That sometimes kindness finds its way back to you in unexpected forms. He thought about Catherine, about her test, about the way life sometimes asks questions we don't know we're answering. And he thought about all the single fathers out there, working 3 jobs, skipping meals, wearing the same clothes for years, all to make sure their children never feel the weight of the world pressing down. He thought about how invisible they were, how people walked past them every day without seeing the sacrifices, the exhaustion, the quiet heroism of just keeping going. Marcus had been invisible for so long, but Catherine had seen him, and because she'd seen him, everything had changed. Not because of the job or the money or the new opportunities, but because for the first time in years, Marcus saw himself differently too. He wasn't just a janitor. He wasn't just barely surviving. He was a man who'd kept his word to his daughter, who'd chosen compassion over bitterness, who'd given everything he had to help a stranger because it was the right thing to do. He was a father, a good man, someone worthy of being seen. The fireflies Lily caught that night died by morning, as they always do. but Marcus kept the jar on the kitchen windowsill as a reminder. Some lights burn bright for just a moment, but their glow stays with you long after the darkness returns. And sometimes, if you're lucky, your own light reaches someone else in their darkest moment. That's how you change the world. Not with grand gestures or wealth or power, but with $380 you can't afford to give. With kindness no one will ever see. With love that costs you everything. And with the quiet understanding that we're all just trying to make it through, one day at a time, hoping that when we stumble, someone will be there to catch us. Marcus had caught Catherine, and she'd caught him right back. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to remember that kindness is never wasted. Hit that like button if you believe that true wealth is measured by the size of your heart, not the size of your bank account. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that honor the single fathers, the quiet heroes, the ones who give everything even when they have nothing left. Because sometimes the people we overlook are the ones teaching us the most important lessons. And sometimes, the smallest act of compassion creates the biggest change. This is Marcus's story, a reminder that you never know when your hardest moment might be preparing you for your greatest blessing. Real character isn't what you do when people are watching. It's what you do when no one will ever know.